And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode 139. Well, last episode we had a stunning Portofino Blue Ford Aerostar Sport, 1997, and I said, you know, in this little run here, we're gonna do the really pristine ones, and then we'll do a little bit more on the jankier side. And right now we have one that's a little bit more on the jankier side. So without further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? Here we have a 1990 Ford Aerostar extended minivan, listed for just $1,500 in Augusta, Georgia. And if you show up to Augusta National Golf Club for the Masters in this thing, they probably will not let you in. Then again, they probably will not let you in for a lot of other reasons too. So neither here nor there. But if you want to put on a green jacket and drive this, you'd be more than welcome to in my book. So wow, I mean, just a lot to take in here. But before we get in, to all that, let's just do about this vehicle. Short description here. Driven only 130,000 miles, not too bad for a 1990. Automatic transmission, exterior color red, interior color burgundy. Interesting that they specified. The fuel type is gasoline. It says it's a one owner. It says it's paid off. And it says it has a clean title. All good things. Seller's description. Okay, before we do that, if you've seen this program before, you know what this is. But if you haven't, not only is this sort of a review and critique of Aerostars for sale on the classifieds, but it is a critique of the classifieds, themselves. It used to be Craigslist back in the day, was kind of king of the court, and now Facebook Marketplace, a little bit to my chagrin, and others too, I think, has sort of taken over. It seems to, just have the most traffic, the most listings. And so, like so many other things with, Mr. Suckaturd, we're forced to sort of play by his rules. But, setting all that aside, here we are. And the funny thing about the classifieds, and this isn't just Marketplace, although Marketplace certainly has its little unique flavor, you learn something about, I guess, the general population and and like what a person thinks is a message that does a good or competent job at advertising something for sale. Now, it sounds very basic, and to give people the benefit of the doubt, which I always do, it's not your grammar doesn't have to be perfect, your spelling doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not a stickler, quite the opposite. I like creative uses of language for I'm not like a person that thinks there is one proper way to speak or write, and that if you don't adhere to that, then you are somehow lesser than, that you are somehow an outcast of any kind, shape, or form. Quite the contrary. However, there is an efficacy quotient, I think, such to say that if you're trying to sell a vehicle, now with the Aerostar in particular, you could say it kind of sells itself, right? So you can put no description out here and you'd have people, just ringing you off the hook just by virtue of what you got. And maybe what you got, But so all that is to say, I'm kind of setting this up long here, but if you're not using, quote unquote, proper grammar or spelling, but you communicate your message, sometimes you can communicate your message even better than if you had used, quote unquote, proper grammar or spelling. You know, like sometimes a feeling or a vibe or a tonality will actually do a better job than something, you know, AI would have generated in terms of describing your vehicle. But sometimes things get a little cloudy and a little confusing, and I think that's where we've ended up here. So sorry for the long-winded, speaking of, you know, efficacy of communication, the long-winded sort of setup here, but let's read the seller's description. Need alternator and just replace the starter, new battery, clean title, fix a lot of stuff on it, runs good, apostrophe, runs good, replacement of seats, no seat in the back. I am open to trade a running truck or SUV with a clean title, looking for a new van or truck or TV. Still runs if you charge up the battery or have a battery to keep on the other battery. It runs amazing. I mean, this is like slam poetry. Like this is, we're getting into slam poetry. I love poetry. My sweetheart writes poetry, and there's something wonderful about the power of punctuation and or lack thereof in poetry, where it'll sound like you sort of, and I'm a novice here, but it'll sound like you're starting a new phrase or a new point, even though you're mid-sentence and there hasn't been any punctuality. Now in poetry, you can sometimes do that by a line break. And I think I would like to see this written, you know, with line breaks to sort of move on to the next point. And there's like, you know, like Wheel of Fortune, there's like before and after category where like, I wish I could think of an example off my head. Basically, the last word of the first word of the first phrase, and then the last word of the first phrase connects with the first word of the second phrase. So there's like a, you know, common theme. That's what I think is going on here. So need alternator, I would think it would be needs alternator. When you say need alternator, it sounds like you physically need an alternator. Because if it's a van, then the van needs an alternator. But I need an alternator, and just replace the starter. So it needs an alternator. Again, we're being snobby here. You know, the van needs an alternator. The starter was just replaced. It has a new battery, but the new battery will come into play later. As a clean title, that's good. I understand that. Fix a lot of stuff on it. Now, does that mean I have to fix a lot of stuff on it, or you already fixed a lot of stuff on it? Probably, you know, the second one, which is good. Fix a lot of stuff on it, runs good. Run, you know, the apostrophe. But, you know, to be quite honest, I make that mistake a lot when I'm just typing. I found myself making all sorts of terrible. It has to be something to do with just like the modern age, but I can never get the right there. I'm always messing stuff up like that. So again, no judgment, no shade, but it is just funny, like the run-on sentence and the way one phrase blends into another is really fascinating. I mean, it's just interesting to see where we're at collectively, you know, as a society with our, you know, communication baseline. You have to parse through some of this stuff, which, if you know, when you like go to a doctor or you hear someone talking about their doctor and they're like, oh, I couldn't understand anything. They can barely speak English. It's like, well, it's not just doctors. It's, you know, dudes in Georgia on Marketplace selling Aerostars that also have that problem. Okay. I am open to trade a running truck or SUV with a clean title, looking for a new van or truck or TV. But then there's like two spaces instead of just one space between or and TV. So it kind of looks like they're saying looking for a new truck or van, or TV still runs if you change up the battery. It's like maybe there's a copy and paste going here, and like on a separate listing they're selling like a battery powered like camping TV or something, and we've like morphed into another universe. Or they're looking to trade for a truck. I mean, okay, I'm open to trade a running truck or SUV with a clean title. That's what they want in the trade. I get that. Looking for a new truck or looking for a new van or truck. Which is funny because I'm open to trade. They want to trade for a truck or an SUV, but they were looking for a new van or a truck. So do they want to trade for a van, and are they looking for an SUV, or do they only want to trade for an SUV but they're looking for a van? Or a truck works for both cases. Van, truck, or SUV, it seems like would be okay. Or a TV, you know. But which, boy, I guess I should message this person and see if they want to. What are they? $1,500. I mean, that's a pretty nice TV, but I could probably find, like, you know, like a used 60-inch TV for, like, I don't know, like $500. They're getting cheap now. And maybe I can trade this for a TV. Now here's the part, you know, you'll go back to the beginning, new battery. So then, assuming they're not talking about the TV still running, and that's the end of the sentence there, still runs if you charge up the battery or have a battery. Okay. So I get that. If you have a new battery, even though it says at the beginning, just replace the starter new battery, but now it says runs if you charge up the battery or have a battery, which, okay, I get it. You need to bring a new battery, but if it has a new battery, let me start again. TV still runs if you charge up the battery or have a battery to keep on the other battery. It runs amazing. So if you, now maybe, you know, maybe because this looks like a camper conversion, there's 2 batteries in this. Like, that could be. It's just like a 2 battery vehicle. Like a lot of big SUVs are 2 battery vehicles. Campers, 2 batteries. So maybe one of the maybe it has a new battery, but it has 2 batteries and one of the batteries isn't new. So you need to charge the new battery. You need to charge the bad battery with the new battery. But if it's a new battery, couldn't it charge that battery? So if you have a battery to keep on the other battery, it runs amazing. So is it only run? Does it run? I guess, you know, the overarching point here is it runs amazing. So we should just stop right there and say, you know, this fan runs amazing, and then just let's set our expectations there, right? So still runs if you charge up the battery or have a battery to keep on the other battery. It runs amazing. If or have a battery, if you still runs if you charge up the battery or have a battery to keep on the other battery. It runs amazing. So maybe it has 2 batteries and one of them's new, and if you charge it, it runs amazing. The new battery. Okay, enough with that. But there's a lot to parse out here. If you're selling let me just say this, if you're selling a vehicle on Marketplace, one of the things you can do to try to improve your results, and I gotta say, I've been so influenced. I've been watching this dude Arvin Haddad, and he critiques like home tours of high-end luxury houses. But then great channel. But then, of course, obviously, he's like doing a consulting service too, and he's in real estate, so he'll like just throw in these gentle little plugs for his own consulting service. Maybe I should do a consulting service about how to like list your vehicle on Marketplace. And I'm basically critiquing people listing their... Now, no one's going to pay me $200 an hour to sell a vehicle for $1,200. So there's a problem there. You know, it's easier to make a commission on something when the price of the thing is like, $40 million. But I digress. Anyways, one of the things you can do, aside from writing a description that is just a little bit more coherent than this one, is take a full frame picture. Like this is just like, this is such a tease. We see these beautiful lines of the Aerostar. We see this amazing graphics package. We see these windows which look like they pop out outwards instead of sliding like the normal windows. We see these awesome wheels, these snowflake style wheels, which I think are probably off of a, I think the Lincoln Mark 7s or the Mark 8s had these, Grand Marquis had these, and I've seen on some of the Aerostar Facebook groups how, they're like a direct bolt-on fit. we see what looks like an Optimum battery, which is like a really good battery, right? And then we see a bubble top, but not just a bubble top, like this very interesting styled bubble top. Like I've never seen anything like it before. So we're so intrigued, and we really want to, know more about this vehicle, but I can't see the front grille or the back bumper. Like I need a full frame shot of this vehicle. It's and I'm not, it's not personal, but like it's so much of a tease to not be able to see this whole thing that I'm frustrated by it. Now, in the next picture, we do have a full frame shot, right? So we get the whole thing in here, and I'm very grateful for that. And look at this bubble. Look at this. There's so many things going on here. Okay, not only is it just like a bubble top, it's like looks like this like sort of Transformers style crate with these with the metal rods on here, and the way it swoops up, and then it's got this little sort of triangular piece in the middle, and then comes down, and it's not just like your regular swooping bubble top. It's got all these angles on it where it actually comes back up in the very end of it. Like I really want to see the interior of this. Now we have these, like I said, these windows, these awning style windows that pop outwards instead of sliding open, just in place like the regular Aerostar windows. And then, the pièce de résistance here, we have barn doors. So this is an extended passenger camper conversion with barn doors. Now, if that sounds familiar to you, just a few episodes ago, I'm going to guess and say 128 or something like that, but I'll put it on the screen. We did another extended camper, but that had cargo doors and also like a pretty unique graphics package, and it was around this era. It might even been a little bit newer Aerostar, but I think some of you, and thank you for your comments, sort of chimed in and said like, yeah, this was a thing. I had never even seen an extended passenger minivan with barn doors, but I think that's probably how they ordered them from the factory, because they just figured the barn, and correctly, especially with a bubble top, the barn doors are just going to provide better access to get in there. So I really like it. I like how the graphics package just does this nice little sort of outline, which allows for your Aerostar logo to be there, your Ford logo. I like the asymmetry of the barn doors, how the license plate sits, right on one door instead of in the middle. I like how the handle for the barn door is just the same handle on the front and the sliding door. I love that from like an efficiency standpoint. They just use the same part. A lot of times your back rear hatch will be like an actual different mechanism, but they just used another door handle and just put it in, sideways like you would on a regular door. I love that. I want to know if this had some sort of custom bumperage. I haven't seen an extended without the bumper on. This looks like a little bit different, but I'm guessing a regular, but then again, an extended barn door style bumper is going to be like real unobtainium. Like that, there's like the amount of extended cargo style Aerostars that are out there, to try to find a bumper for this is going to be like next to impossible. You almost have to get one fabricated or get a shorty bumper style and get it extended. But one day I would love to be able to make Aerostar bumpers to be able to provide that for the market. We'll see if I ever get there. This would look very stunning if it was new and still shiny and everything. I think because it's rust free and it looks pretty straight, not a lot of dents or dings, like I think the patina with the graphics package actually works very well. I like all the natural fade and patina and how these colors that are like sort of your pinstripes come up and then just sort of like fade out into nothing, or the white fades into the red. I think if you just were able to put a rear bumper on this thing and then make it mechanically sound, I think it looks great with the patina on it. I think it looks really, really good. So I would just keep that. Now here's a big clue, and you can see the color of the paint on the inside of the door jamb where it's not all sunbeat, living in Georgia its whole life. So incomplete vehicle manufactured by Ford Motor Company. Boom. I mean, that's like all the, a lot of people had said this already, so it's not like necessarily news, but it is confirmation that Ford must have made these. They probably made them as like shells or whatever. The company the camper conversion company said, okay, we want an extended cargo Aerostar, but we want it in a passenger guise. you know, and then Ford would just manufacture it. September of 1989, this was manufactured. So I know, you know, even now you can go buy an F550 that's just like a chassis and like a cab, and then you put whatever you want on the back of it, right? So it's sort of a similar concept. Now, I don't know where the other battery could be, because this looks like an Optimum battery, which was like a super like expensive battery, right? So maybe the other battery's in the rear somewhere, and one of those has to get charged in order to run the vehicle. But usually the second battery would just be sort of like your auxiliary functions, right? So again, like, and it's not even a critique. It's not like I'm genuinely confused by that. I'm not like saying, oh, this person doesn't know how to write or whatever. Again, like if you, the only thing that matters is if you communicate what you're trying to say. But in this case, I don't know what he's trying to say, what they're trying to say. Like, what do you mean? Is it a new battery? Are there two batteries? Do you charge one battery with the other battery? Like, why, like, what's going on? Like, what's the situation? I don't know. So again, like, if you're buying something on Marketplace, you want to, like, nobody wants to waste anybody's time, right? I don't want to waste your time. Like, I'm not actually going to seriously consider purchasing this vehicle, I'm not going to call you and ask you a million questions. But if you don't seriously want to sell this vehicle, or if I'm going to make an attempt to try to buy this vehicle, like, I want some basic details answered for me before, like, it's just about, it's like, it gets into like a, you know, a morality or an ethics of just not wasting other people's time. Like, let me know what's going on in terms of the basics of this vehicle so that I can make an informed, contact with you, and then we can, you know, if it seems like it's as advertised, then we can, you know, maybe negotiate a price and then figure out the logistics of getting it. I've bought multiple Aerostars out of state, and I've never dickered on the price. I even the last Aerostar I bought, I paid more than they wanted for it. Just as like I gave them a little tip as a thank you, because they spent, you know, time communicating with me, you know, and like, I'm self-employed, my time is money. Like, so, and the other person like held the Aerostar for me after I bought it, let me store it there for a couple months till I could pay my good friend John, shout out to John from Green Schwinn, who's on tour right now, and then I paid him to take a Greyhound bus, and I paid him by the hour to which was still cheaper than having it shipped, which is crazy, to drive the Aerostar back to Buffalo, and you all know what happened after that. But, you know, it's funny, it's very funny, but it's not, I'm not just like making fun of someone. It's not a personal ad hominem attack. But if you're going to sell on Marketplace, because we're critiquing Marketplace culture just as much as, like, you know, there's so much like polarity and whatever going on in our country, and there's so much like just nastiness, and people just fervently, it's sad to see the erosion of just like basic decency. And this is an opportunity. Like, we live in capitalism, right? Like, I always said Craigslist was like the purest form of the best form of capitalism, because it was just like, you need to sell something, you list it for a price, maybe you want to trade, and you come to an agreement, and then like you fairly advertise the vehicle, you make the market will decide what that vehicle is worth, and then you make a transaction, and like, everybody's happy, right? So long as you have described the vehicle accurately. It's not that you can't say there's nothing wrong with it. You can say, this is a shell of a vehicle, it needs everything, it needs a full restoration. You can, as long as you're representing the vehicle accurately, or the item for sale accurately, then there's no problem in, you know, like, saying there's things wrong with it. The person buying it wants to know everything that's wrong with it, and sometimes you don't know little things, or you don't know the answer, or sometimes it functioned fine until the week you sold it, and then it didn't, you know? So there's like, I think you get what I'm saying. But so anywho, we don't know what's going on in this vehicle, and of course I'm not buying this vehicle. I'm already loaded to the hilt with Aerostars right now, but I don't know why I went on that little screed, but I think two people making a transaction, like, for me, an Aerostar is like kind of a sacred thing, right? So like, it's just an opportunity to have a human interaction on a very small scale, and it's not difficult to do, and yet it can go such a long way in actually strengthening just people's expectations of what a decent human interaction can be, and that's like the glue and the fabric that binds everything together, right? So here is something I appreciate. We have a picture of this, not only this beautiful wheel, but this wonderful tire, which you can see has a crack in it. So again, that's truth in advertising. I appreciate that. And again, I'm not trying to like somehow scandalously criticize this person. I don't think they've done I think they've actually tried to describe things wrong with the vehicle. It's just doesn't seem like they're trying to be dishonest or anything like that, but there are opportunities to like just take a little bit of time, write out a description that like you think makes sense, and just put your best foot forward. When you go camping, don't leave garbage everywhere. It's a very basic concept. So a wonderful looking Aerostar here. We're getting a visitor. A picture tells 1,000 words. I can give you. I wish we had some more shots of the interior. That's the other thing I'll say is if you're listing a vehicle for sale, full frame shots. Like this is an interesting framing. Now maybe this is like an artist, an artistic rendering, or maybe they're demonstrating that they have the ability to park inside the lines in a parking spot, which is also an issue these days. I find, parking between two yellow lines is surprisingly challenging for some people. Obviously, I love this style grille. I think this is an 89, a 90, which I believe is the same year of my new acquisition. So funny, I don't even know if I can't remember if it's a 90 or 91 right now. So it's a cool generation because you have the newer style 3-spoke grille, but you have the logo in the middle, and you still have your sort of old style recessed glass bulb headlights instead of your flush mounted ones that came in around 92. A very cool era for the Aerostar. It was really just starting to hit its stride. I love these wheels. You can see the little center caps here. A lot of pictures of the tires. I wish we had more, it's a very basic front, side, rear, all in full frame. And then if you want to shoot some detailed shots or some stylistic shots, maybe a shot of the engine bay, and then some shots of the interior. Like, let me see the front, let me see the center console as wide angle as possible so you can see as much of it as get a clear view of it. Get a view maybe looking into the back, a view looking into the front, sort of a POV view of what you would see when you step into the vehicle with like your seat, your center console, shifter area, that nature. A lot of these things should sort of be self-evident, but maybe I should actually even get into do an official how to list your car. There's probably already videos on YouTube describing that. It would seem to be common sense, but it's funny just to see what's out there and what passes as. There's another Aerostar listing I'm looking at soon that has some very interesting. There's a whole category of lazy marketplace listings, which is funny, just people leaning out of their window at 2 in the morning and taking a picture where you can barely see the car, and it's all fuzzy because there's not enough light. It's well, we had to take a picture of the vehicle, and this technically it meets the definition of a picture of this vehicle, so send it out there. Again, I'm not trying to be too harsh. I feel like I'm not trying to attack anyone or make fun of anyone or belittle anyone, but it just always amazes me. The thing I'll say is if I've learned anything in my life, it's that a little bit of extra effort can have a lot of extra results. And I think that maybe the Aerostar is proof positive of that. The Aerostar just went a little further in concept of design, in aesthetics and being inspired by the spaceship. It just went a little further in terms of making your step up heights lower to load things in, a little further in considering what you might want to put in there in terms of plywood, in terms of giving it a little further in terms of drivetrain availability, manual transmission, 4-wheel drive, marketing. They just went a little further, and like they wrote like a whole jingle just for the Aerostar and came up with these brilliant ad campaigns. And I think like that just little bit extra of effort or consideration can yield a result that's greater than the sum of its parts. And I think there's no better example of that than the Ford Aerostar. It becomes iconic when it's not just a thing. It's like it's this defined singular thing. And I think that's what people gravitate to. That's what people can build a narrative or a story on, or it can gain allure, or it can, gain provenance. And some people may see that in Lamborghinis and Ferraris. And sure, that's definitely there, but I see it most prominently in the Ford Aerostar, and just this underrated just staying power. I mentioned that phrase in the last episode, where it just hangs around and it hangs around and it hangs around and it does its job, and it doesn't ask for praise, and it doesn't ask for adulation, and it doesn't ask for attention, and it's still like, it's not overexposed, and it's not too commercialized, and there's not some fad market around it, and it doesn't have its own crypto scam based on it. It just shows up and it delivers again and again and again. And there's so many different iterations of it. It's at the same time singular and unified, while also being just exploded across the universe in a diaspora of different, iterations and practical uses and all that. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I'm happy that this person has one. I'm happy that this person has listed it for sale. It's a very reasonable price, and aside from, the somewhat confusing description, it doesn't seem like it's being demonstrated or it's being advertised inaccurately. I just wish we had, photos that were a little bit more descriptive, like the words of what exactly was going on in this case. However, I guess there's only one way to find out, and if you have $1,500 and you want to go purchase this vehicle, then we'll get, it says the interior is burgundy, which is interesting, because this, to me, maybe it is actually, it looked like tan at first glance, but it looks like maybe this is actually a burgundy going on. I really want to see the interior of this vehicle. But alas, we'll just have to hope that someone buys it, and maybe we'll get some sort of description from the buyer. Or maybe the seller will see this. And seller, if you happen to see this video for whatever reason, I hope you're not mad at me. I'm not attacking you. It's just my honest critique of how your listing could be better, and that by making your listing better, you could get more money for your vehicle. You could get, as Arvin Haddad, I've been talking about Arvin Haddad a lot, you can get a higher exit, as he calls it. If you really make this vehicle more appealing, because it is very appealing. You have a wonderful vehicle on your hands. You just need to sell it in the right way, which it's not dishonestly, but just give us a little bit more eye candy, give us a little bit more enticement. And I get it. Maybe that's not what you're trying to do. Maybe you want to give someone a good deal, and that's cool. I'm going to talk myself in circles here, so we'll leave it at that. But I get a little sensitive because I think that I never want to be a bully or like look down on people. I think that's really nasty to do. At the same time, we look to see where we can find improvement, and I think that if it's an indictment of anyone, it's not an individual person. It's an indictment of like the system that we have in place to, get some basic standards as to, how to go about showcasing Aerostars. in this case. It's really always about the Aerostar at the end of the day. That's who I'm looking out for. So there you have it. Hopefully everything's still running here. And I apologize. I know I'm sniffling and I sound like, but there's some allergies in the air and I'm a little verklempt. So forgive me for that, please. I know, like, I'm conscious of it, but at the same time I forget I'm doing it. So if I sound like I'm, huffing cough syrup or something like that, which again, no judgment if you're huffing. I'm not connecting the two. I'm just saying, I'm trying to be like just a decent, empathetic person, while also, making a YouTube video that has some modicum of watchability without these little ticks and talks. So there you have it. Okay, that was a wild one. I think this is what happens when you try to shoot 2 episodes in a row, is you really start going down like a rabbit hole. Maybe I need to pace myself a little bit more. But I think this is a great contrast to the last episode with that Portofino Blue out in the Hamptons. Now we're down in Georgia with, this like camper van. So you're getting 2 very different flavors, and one is not better than the other. They're all little slices of Aerostardom. And boy, I really like the aesthetic of this one in particular, though. That the fact that it's passenger with barn doors is such a cool iteration. I would love if I could put barn doors on my, 1990, just because I think the practicality of it is so cool. There's really no downside to it because it functions the same, in terms of getting stuff in as a lift gate. But if you do have stuff on the roof, or just from owning a vehicle that had barn doors, my little Ford Transit, I really appreciated the practicality of them. So very cool to see that. And then with all the graphics and everything, just a really, really very enticing 1990 Ford Aerostar extended minivan. There you go. Thank you so much for joining us here on Year of the Aerostar. I'm so happy to be back and making episodes again. And, without promising anything, I will say I'm going to, do my darndest to really get through a lot of these. And I don't mean that in like a burdensome way, but like get to them, like get into them, because there's so many good Aerostars out there right now. And it's always sad when one sort of slips away, but the silver lining to that is there's just more and more that keep coming onto the market. I mean, they made over 2 million, and we think about how many 2 million actually is. It's a lot of Aerostars, and so we're so fortunate that so many of them are still out there. There's some listings up right now that it's like, buy this for parts before I take it to the crusher, and those are always sad, but you got to keep things in perspective. It's the cycle of life and all that. We just want to preserve as many as we can for as long as we can. And I think we're doing a pretty decent job. So, Janky do Thanky to all you out there, the Aerostar owners, the Aerostar fans, the Aerostar enthusiasts, or just the, random people on the internet who have found themselves in this very strange niche corner of the YouTube algorithm. If you happen to be one of those people, well, Janky do Thanky for stopping by and witnessing this strange person talking at length about the Ford Aerostar. Okay, this has been Year of the Aerostar here on Janky AF. We'll have another one coming for you very soon, and until then, Janky do Thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.